My name is Chinedu Mopelola, who is on site in Port Harcourt, Nigeria, and I will be moderating this hybrid segment of the conference, and we're pleased to be here. At today's special ICA Nigeria Special Guest Panel segment, which is titled Perceived Communication Effects and Impact in the 2023 Nigerian Presidential Election Campaign. Our presenters will share a short progress report from each of our 8 international research teams. They will focus largely on the qualitative aspects of their research on the recently concluded presidential election campaign. However, before the presentations commence, we do have to take care of some housekeeping. And so first, I'd like to ask that participants who are on Zoom should keep their mics muted until it's their turn to speak. And for our on-site participants, if you could also mute your phones or put them on who is on site in Port Harcourt to introduce the ICA president, who has some welcome remarks for us. Mope, over to you. You're muted.
Okay, once again, thank you very much indeed, Professor Mba, and of course to all participants. I welcome you, of course, to the hall. This is the Garden City, Port Harcourt. Well, a brief citation of the ICA president. Professor Notary Contractor is a professor of behavioral sciences in the McCormick School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, the School of Communication, and the Kellogg School of Management. And he is also the Director of Science of Networks in Communities, SONIC, a research group at Northwest University. Is, of course, the president of the International Communication Association, ICA. Professor Contractor has been at the forefront of 3 emerging interdisciplines: network science, computational social science, and web science. He has written lots of books, including books related to business, scientific communities, healthcare, and space travel. His book, Theories of Communication Network, co-authored with Peter Mung, received the 2003 Book of the Year award with the Organizational Communication Division of the National Communication Association and the 2021 International Communication Association Fellow Awards. He has, of course, different awards to his credit. He is an alumnus from the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras, where he received a bachelor's in electrical engineering. He received his PhD from the Annenberg School of Communication at the University of Southern California. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the citation of our president, Professor Notary Contractor.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that very warm introduction, and happy to be a participant here. I had some, I don't know if I'm able to share my screen. It says it's disabled. If it is possible, I'll be happy to share a screen and some slides, but if not, I completely understand. So I'll go ahead and just start talking. And if the presentation, if you could disable if you can allow me to share my screen, I'll be happy to do.
Please go ahead to share your screen. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. That sounds great. Thank you so much. That was very quick. Okay, so let's do that. Let me see if I can share a portion of my screen here. Oops. How do I get this here to be just where I wanted? There we go. So you're able to see it now?
Yes, we can. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. So I'm going to, oops, there's an echo. I'm going to give you a sneak preview of something that people in Toronto will not see until Saturday evening. This is the presidential address, a small excerpt of that. It's not going to be that long, because I know you have exciting presentations to hear about on this panel. So I'll just take a few minutes. But I wanted to touch on a couple of things that congratulate, first of all, you on having such a successful regional hub and becoming now a veteran at these regional hubs for us. And so that's something that I'm really excited about. And I'm also excited, and congratulations again to you for being only the second ICA regional chapter ever. I'll end with an update on where we are with chapters. But in the meantime, I'll just go ahead and give you a quick overview of what I see as the emergence of communication as an important hub in the world in terms of scholarly and applied work as we look at some of the societal challenges we face. I'm going to present you with two arguable myths. The first is some have perceived us as a small field, meaning communication, as a small field of the margins, what I would call a nice to have rather than a need to have. And then the second myth I want to talk to you about is whether we are in fact the international, in quotes, communication association. Let me start with the first myth. As we look at all the sustainable development goals and all the challenges that we face today on this planet, we ask ourselves the question, to what extent are we in communication being able to address this? So one of the things that I have done with a very superb team of collaborators is we looked at all the 156 communication journals that are listed under the social sciences classification, and we found that 50 out of those 156 communication journals are actually cross-listed with some other discipline, whether that discipline is in the social sciences, in the arts and humanities, in the physical sciences, life sciences, or health sciences. All this says is that communication already has many of its journals that are linked to some other discipline outside of communication itself. If you look over time from 1950 to 1984, communication journals were often cross-listed with other social science journals, which means a journal would say our focus is communication and our focus is some other area in social sciences. We had much thinner lines, much fewer that listed communication journals with ones in life sciences, physical sciences, arts, and humanities. But as we look at the last 30 years, the last 25 years, we see a different story. As we look at 35 years. As we look at this period of time, we see that there's a new change here. The link, first of all, communication, number of communication journals has increased. This circle is much bigger than the one on the left. And the number of journals that we have that are cross-listed with social sciences has increased, arts and humanities, physical sciences, and even to some extent health sciences, which means that we are doing more and more work collaboratively with other disciplines. We then ask ourselves, who is it that we cite in communication research? Well, it looks like back in 1990 to 2004, we were citing the social sciences more than anything else, and a little bit arts and humanities, physical sciences, health sciences, and life sciences. Now we turn to the last 15 years out here, and we see a slightly different story. We are citing a lot more from the social sciences, but we are also citing a lot more from health sciences, physical sciences, and arts and humanities, not so much still from life sciences. All of this to say is that our scholarship is leveraging what is happening in many other areas. Likewise, many other areas are leveraging what's happening in communication. So if you look at this slide, you see who's citing us. A large number of the people who cite us has been from social sciences, but we are seeing increasing number of people citing us from health sciences, from physical sciences, and from the arts and humanities. What does this mean? It means our work is being recognized, is being valued by people in a lot of other disciplines as well. So what this basically means is that we are now a hub leader and others are beginning to see it. We knew that we were a hub leader, but it has taken time for others to see that what communication has to offer is critical across these different areas. More of our journals are cross-listed with other disciplines, and the implication is that we have a greater responsibility to serve as a hub leader. So while it is an honor to be a hub leader, it also comes with greater responsibility. The word hub means different things. In some ways, we are the center of something. It also means we're attracting a lot of attention, especially in this digital age with all the importance of digital media. A lot of other academic societies as well, disciplines as well as society is looking at us. And then finally, and importantly, we are now a hub in the sense that we are the enabler of connections. We are helping build connections between different disciplines in the health sciences, in the physical sciences, and the social sciences and the humanities. And that's a really exciting role for us to be doing here. The second myth I want to talk about briefly, and I'm mindful of time, I'll wrap this up in about 4 minutes now, is that we claim we are the International Communication Association. But if you look at the evidence, you'll see that there are only 3 divisions within ICA that have more than 50% of its members from outside the United States of America. How international could we be if only 3 divisions, journalism studies, mobile communication, and political communication, have more than half of its membership coming from outside just the United States? This does not speak to a high level of being international. If we look in 2020, and now we see in 2023 that there are 5,400 members in ICA, but if you look at where these members come from, you see on the map, 55% are coming from the United States, 6% from Germany, 4% from Australia, 3% from China, and so on. If you look at the global map, you see a dominance of the US, some interest in Canada, some interest in Australia, China, but notice Africa is almost invisible as a continent in terms of membership at ICA. We cannot call ourselves international and have that invisibility right there. If we look at by divisions, for example, which are the divisions that are most globally represented? The top globally represented divisions, in this case, journalism studies. Now if you look specifically at how many members of ICA are members of the journalism division. If you compare this, you see a little bit more out here. And same thing with mobile communication. We see a little more visibility for Africa in these areas, but not in many other areas. If you look again at the less globally represented divisions like communication science and biology, it's so heavily dominated by the United States, and there is very little interest in many parts of the world, including Africa. So if you look at communication publications, here again, we see that the majority of articles published in communication happen in North America, Canada, United States, China, Australia, and in parts of Europe, including Great Britain. And again, this continues to be a real trend. None of these top 20 lists includes a single country from Africa. If you look at the trends, here again, we don't see any movement, any improvement in the number of countries, in which countries are publishing from Africa that has happened within the last 5 years. If we look at collaborations across different countries, again, we find the same things, that if you look at authors of articles that involve collaborations between 2 or more countries, in 2015, there were only 900 articles approximately that had collaborators across countries. That number went up a little bit in 2019. It still accounts for only about 30% of our collaborations. And if you look at it, most of those collaborations start in the US and connect to countries like Great Britain, Spain, Australia, South Korea, and China. Once again, we are missing Africa as a collaborator, either with the US or with other countries around the world. In fact, if you look at the top 20 collaborations, the majority of them are between the United States and countries like South Korea, Great Britain, Canada. Some of them are between European countries and countries in the West. We don't see a single collaboration in the top 20 that involves any country from Africa. The same thing in 2019, things are not really that different. Now, the United States, the biggest collaborator for the US is no longer South Korea, it's China, and with Canada coming in second. But here again, we see the same kinds of issues across this different areas. So again, we come back to on communication being a hub and why it is something that we need to take more seriously. So what is ICA doing? In closing, We've obviously created regional hubs, regional chapters, and podcast networks. Let me touch on each. You are sitting today in one of these hubs here in ICA 2023 Regional Hub in Port Harcourt. I was very, very honored and very pleased to be there with you. Perhaps I think by recognizing, I think it was in the very same auditorium where you are sitting right now, if I'm not mistaken. It looks very familiar to me. Not that long ago, when I was there to help you celebrate the launch of the second ICA regional chapter. Now, in addition to regional chapters in Nigeria, Indonesia, Kenya, and China, we just announced yesterday that the ICA Executive Committee has also approved the creation of a chapter in India and one in France. So we are very happy to have 6 regional chapters around the world to help us see what we can do so that people in these parts of the world, in your parts of the world, will be able to build community, come together, and help advance the vision of making communication as a hub discipline across the world. I also encourage you in closing to look at the ICA podcast network. ICA has spent a lot of time in the last year and a half in creating 9 podcast series, some of them focusing on general topics like architects of communication scholarship. Each episode is only 20 minutes long. It has wonderful insights into many of the scholars that we read about. And this is a conversation with them to learn more about how they thought, how they came into the field, what inspired them. I also will encourage you, the younger people, to look at the one called Growing Up Communication. This is one that focuses on, it is podcast episodes, 20 minutes, run by students and early career scholars, talking to other students and early career scholars, as well as some professionals. How do you be a good student? How do you think about applying to grad school? How do you think about getting ready for the job market? How do you think about attending a conference like ICA? I also would recommend in particular the one on the bottom left called Interventions from the Global South. This is a podcast focusing exclusively on issues related to the Global South, on decentering communication scholarship so that it's no longer seen as something that is the purview only of the United States and other Western countries. So I hope that, first of all, I want to congratulate all of you on being amongst the leaders in the world in doing this. ICA is very grateful to you. Considers you as a close ally and a good friend and a supporter in our vision. These are some of the members on my team who have helped put together the data that I presented out here. I just want to, again, use this opportunity to thank all of you and to thank ICA, and in particular to recognize the incredible accomplishments of my predecessors as presidents of ICA, who have helped us come to this far in our journey for continuing internationalization and moving forward. I am confident that Unju Lee, who is going to become president in 4 days, and her successor, Sylvia Weisbord, who is going to be organizing the ICA 24 conference in Gold Coast, that these are both international scholars, or scholars born and outside the United States, who have strong commitments to continuing our quest for international, and I look forward to serving them as a fellow executive committee member in the next coming years. Thank you so much again for your time, and I apologize for taking so long.
Thank you so much, Professor Contractor, and that welcome remark was a challenge thrown and a challenge well received. So the call to action is out there, and I think ICA can trust that the African region is going to make the necessary changes. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Good luck with the rest of your sessions there.
Thank you very much. Okay, so welcome again, participants. And if you are just joining us here today, this is the ICA Nigeria Special Guest Panel segment titled Perceived Communication Effects and Impact in the 2023 Nigerian Presidential Election Campaign. Here in this session, our international teams of researchers will share short progress reports from 8 research teams. They will focus largely on the qualitative aspects of their research, on the recently concluded 2023 presidential election campaign in Nigeria. Now we have 2 hours for this segment, and we're going to do our best to stick to the time. Whatever happens, just know that you will find the time spent here useful. And this is how the session will flow. We have 8 research teams that will be presenting. We have split the 8 teams into 3 groups for our purpose today. The representative or lead for each team will have 7 minutes to present their brief progress report. We're trusting that they will manage their time well, but we are here. I am here, Akaite is here, and Mope is here on hand to let each of them know when their time is up. Now, the end of each group presentation, we have Akaite George and Choma Ezewafor. Both or one of them will have about 5 minutes to share their thoughts. Akaite and Choma are of the University of Port Harcourt in Nigeria. Now, following Choma and Akaite's discussion, we will have 10 minutes for questions and comments from participants. We will take questions and comments from participants who are on site and also virtual. And for the participants on Zoom, please use the chat function for your questions and comments, and we'll get to those. And if you would like to speak, please use the raise your hand feature, and we will get to you as time permits. Once more, please remember to keep your mics muted until you've been called upon to speak. And now we'll move on to the present. For the first group, we will have the newspaper, radio, television, and print broadcast media teams. So it is my pleasure to call upon the print media team represented by Jude Ogbodo. Jude Ogbodo is a lecturer at Ebonyi State University, Abakaliki, Nigeria. Jude, if you're ready, I will share your slide and you can open up your mic. And all you have to do is let me know when to move the slide by saying next. So let's welcome Jude.
All right, thank you so much, Professor Mba. Yeah, from the print journalism team, I have Professor Nuhu Gapsiso from University of Maiduguri, and we have Dr. Manwa Ikweme, University of Nigeria and Soka, and we have Dr. Dan Okolo, Dr. Marcel Mbamalo from the publisher of Prime Business Africa, and we have Jewel Daphnino, managing editor, the News Guru, and we have Canon Tony Ajero, MD, CEO, Port Novelli, and we also have our dearest Dr. Chuks and Warren, and some research assistants. Next slide, please. Yeah, by way of introduction, media, as we all know, play a very important role in election period, and it is the avenue that rallies support for some voters, for some candidates of political parties. Newspaper, for instance, or particularly offer some in-depth coverage of the election, and it is mostly good for the opinion leaders who in turn influence the voters. And political parties and their candidates more or less rely on the media to influence these voters. Then the 2023 presidential election, for instance, was particularly unique because it provided an avenue for a third force. You know, in the past elections, we've only had a 2-horse race between maybe the main opposition and then the main political party. This 2023 presidential election campaign was particularly different because it provided us with choices, not limiting us to the normal 2-horse race. So we have 3-horse race, and some analysts even argue that we have a 4-horse race. Next slide, please. The election, presidential election started on 28th of September 2022, and then ended on 23rd of February, 24th February rather, 2023. And then, like I said earlier, it started like a 2-horse race, but subsequently, because of the decamping of the presidential candidate of Labour Party, Peter Obi, we have three major contenders. And then the period was characterized by litigations, propaganda, and proliferation of fake news. So many political parties and the agency using the media to kind of narrow the chances of the opposition. And then the media sanctions and media capture also characterized that period of presidential election campaign. Next slide. The problem that necessitated this study is that we've all seen in the past that media provides both balanced and distorted coverage. And unlike other developing countries developed countries or advanced democracies where you have advanced rules for media, robust rules for media, playing very important roles during elections. That of Nigeria and other developing countries require more systematic scrutiny. And it is, on record that the past elections in Nigeria have been studied, basically from the point of view of volume of coverage, horse race, and then there's an insufficient empirical spotlight on issue-based campaign or issue-based coverage. Most of the things we've seen is where the media would concentrate effort on internal or intra-party wrangling without necessarily, looking at the options, the important issues that should be focused on. Then there's also an insufficient empirical insight into media capture. These ones are things that necessitated this study. We also noticed that the existing studies have predominantly use maybe a single method, qualitative method or quantitative method. Our own study is using a combination of different methods, a mixed methods approach to kind of explore these issues and bring it to limelight. Next slide. The major goal of our study is to explore Nigerian newspapers coverage of 2023 presidential election campaign, and we have specific objectives include evaluating the nature of Nigerian newspaper coverage of 2023 elections. And then we also intend to determine the key dynamics that dominated the presidential election coverage. And then we also want to kind of examine the relationship between media capture and newspaper coverage of the presidential election campaign. Next slide. Our methods, like I said earlier, we're using mixed methods approach, and that entails using qualitative and quantitative content analysis. We purposefully selected 8 national dailies. I don't want to mention all the newspapers now, but we selected them purposefully. And the use of these newspapers, we argue or we think, provides unique breadths for assessing this presidential election campaign. And these newspapers, we have 14 days or 14 editions from each. That is one constructed week and one continuous week. And that gives us 112 editions in all. So in addition to the content analysis, we also use the critical incident analysis, because we understand that there are some days within the election campaign period, presidential election campaign period, that important events may have happened, and if we do not, those events might help us to interpret exactly the media coverage of the event. So we feel that using critical incident analysis is also going to be important in our study. In addition to that, we also have sorry, go back to the previous slide. Sorry, yeah. In addition to critical incident analysis, we're also going to use in-depth interview, the personal